Hello, my name is Tony Whalen, and I'd like to share with you this piece of art that I have here. This piece of art to me is a model. It's a model of who we are and what we are here for. I learned a lot about the Indigenous faith recently from Kim Wheatley. Kim would come on retreats with us in our Catholic school and share her spirituality and her culture. She is an Anishinaabe knowledge keeper, and I'm deeply grateful to her for all that I've learned and her permission to share what I've been learning as well. One of the things that I learned is about the medicine wheel. It's called the medicine wheel because it has the four medicines: tobacco, sweetgrass, cedar, and sage. And so the idea of this little model, it started, believe it or not, with sticks that I picked up that have been chewed by beavers. So this one here, by the way, this stick was made by an artist in LaFontaine, Ontario. His name is Steve. He works at the Painted Turtle. So I brought him these beaver sticks, and he made a bunch of things, and I got to take this one. This is a walking stick. But this little model here is also made of sticks that beavers have chewed. So that's what this beaver stick is. So right here, it's chewed on both ends, this one and this one as well. And that's where the whole thing started. Me picking up sticks and wanting to do something with it. What does a beaver stick represent? What does the beaver represent? Well, the beaver represents hard work, industriousness. It's Canada's national animal, and you see them busy about their thing, building dams and so on. And so I have always thought and taught that hard work is extremely important for success, for living your best life. You know, one of the readings this week, Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. So he asked absolutely everything. Any sports coach, any life coach will ask the same, and we need to ask the same of ourselves. Now, one of the things with the medicine wheel, it represents a lot of things. It's the four directions and earth, wind, fire, and water. It also represents body, mind, spirit, and emotions. And that's the one that I emphasize here. We need to give our all at developing our body, at developing our mind, living out our emotions and our spirit. It takes effort, of course, right? To exercise your body, to educate your mind, to work on your emotions, deal with your fears and your angers, as well as living out your joys and your love. Your spiritual life, no less so. It takes effort. I heard a speaker once, she was a Benedictine nun, and she talked about, she has a commitment to a life of prayer, 5 hours a day, to get up in the middle of the night and the whole thing. She ended her talk by saying, it's not just for nuns, it's for everybody, and I'd recommend an hour a day. St. Francis de Sales famously said, everybody should have a half an hour a day of prayer, unless you're very busy, and then an hour would be required. So who we are, what are we here for? We are body, mind, spirit, emotions. And what are we here for? We're here for love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. Now I want to talk about this vertical line. Why did I have to make it three-dimensional? There's a guy named Ken Wilber, and he has studied all world religions. He's a brilliant writer, and I've read a lot of his writings, and he writes about integral spirituality. Integral spirituality is to work on all four, and to work on all four on three levels. And the three levels are nature, self, and society. And so, if you take your body, you need to feed it the proper nutrients and so on. You need to have self-discipline and work on it. And you also need to have a coach and, the help of others, the wisdom of others. The same with all of them. If you think about the spiritual life, we're going to talk about connecting it with nature and how important that is. You need to have a private prayer life and self-discipline in that. And you also need to connect to a church community, have a spiritual director, and the wisdom of the ages. So an integral approach, developing all four and all three levels. At this point, I'd like to invite you to press pause, and if you're by yourself, just to reflect, maybe journal a little bit about what I've been saying, and if you're with others, to have a conversation. And just, perhaps where's your strongest body, mind, spirit, emotions? Where do you need some work? Next, I'd like to talk about this vine on the outside. So I cut down this vine and I put it here just as a way to hold it together. It's something that I could bend. I soaked it in water and bent it like that. And then it occurred to me, and art has a way of doing that, just new meanings emerge. The vine, what does the vine represent in our Christian spirituality? John 15, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So I've been emphasizing hard work, and here this seems to say all is grace. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Well, which one is it? And I'd like to think it's some happy combination of both. There's a great story in the gospel, Luke 19, Zacchaeus. He's a short guy, so he has his limitations. He's a tax collector, most despised people of the time. He runs ahead and he climbs a sycamore tree because he wanted to see Jesus. And Jesus comes up and he looks up and he says, Zacchaeus, I need to stay at your place today. Zacchaeus hurries down, full of great joy. He's been impacted. He's had some kind of profound experience. And he says, if I've cheated anybody, I'm going to pay him back 4 times as much. And I'm going to give half my belongings to the poor. No, that's true conversion. And it's what it's all about. It shows a combination of him making the effort, running ahead, overcoming his limitations, climbing the tree, making an effort to have this encounter. And then once he has the encounter, well, it's all grace. Again, it's some happy combination of both. These things, encounters with God, still happen, thankfully. I wrote a book called Prayer, and in it I begin with a section called Why Pray. My argument for why pray, I tell 8 stories of people who have had these kinds of encounters. And this is why we want to pray, because it's the most awesome, beautiful thing one can experience. One of the stories I tell is of Pope Francis. He was 17 years of age. He could name the date. It was September 21st, the first day of spring in Argentina. And he says he was supposed to meet friends, but he was wandering, he was walking by a church, and somehow he was drawn to go in there. He met a priest that he had never met before, and he was so impressed with his holiness that he went to the Sacrament of Reconciliation. And it was such a profound experience for him that he knew from that day he was going to become a priest and give his whole life to God. He writes, from that moment on, God became for me the one who goes ahead of you. You are seeking him, and he seeks you first. It's so beautiful. So it's this combination. God is seeking you, you are seeking God. This encounter happens, and it's the most beautiful thing. You know, we can't describe God, but we can describe, to the best of our ability, our experience of God. It's been said that an atheist is just someone who hasn't met God yet. Who are we? Well, I believe we come from God. We're made by God, of God. One of the Psalms, it says, you are God's, all of you. You know, and Jesus quotes that in the Gospel of John. What are we here for? St. Augustine says, our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord. Who are we? What are we here for? I'd like to invite you to pause again, and if you're by yourself, to reflect and journal with others, to have a conversation. And it's sort of a favorite topic of conversation for me, a time that you experience God. And it may be a very major experience, or it might be something very minor and very ordinary. A time when you experienced God. I'd like to talk about another element of this that kind of surprised me. So I put green on the bottom because green represents nature, and then I thought, well, green on the bottom, up on top where the sky is, I'll put blue. How did I come to this color brown here in the middle? Well, I'll tell you what I did. I took those 4 colors of the medicine wheel, red, black, white, and yellow, body, mind, spirit, emotions. I was wondering what would happen if you combined them. Because I do think the body is connected to the emotions and the mind, and the spirit is the energy of light that's in all of it. I think they are connected. And if you mix them together, what color would it be? And it came out to be this kind of brown. And right away I thought to myself, it's kind of a Franciscan brown. It's kind of a clay brown. It's very earthy. And Celtic spirituality is very much the same way. There's a great book by John O'Donoghue called Anam Cara, and he talks about that Celtic spirituality. He says we are fashioned from the earth, We are souls in clay form. You know, you think of the Hebrew scriptures as well. We are fashioned from the earth. We recently had Ash Wednesday. Remember, you are dust. To dust you shall return. Now, why does this matter? Well, matter matters. It's who we are. Rohr says that we had to take matter seriously or we won't matter. You know, and I think a lot of times we're kind of dualistic in our thinking, and we think, well, don't be so materialistic and be more spiritual. But the truth is, we need to see the connection between them, so that way we'll have more reverence and respect for nature. And we'll stop being so wasteful. As an aside, you know, I was thinking about the black and the red and money. You know, you don't want to be in the red with your money, and according to our Christian scriptures, we don't want to be too much in the black either. In Proverbs it says, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the bread that is my portion. Otherwise, having too much, I would deny you, saying, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, profaning the name of my God. Proverbs 38. So again, not too much in the red, not too much in the black, a proper balance. Indigenous spirituality says that it's important to have a balance with nature, not to take more than you need, and to keep a balance with nature. So who we are souls in clay form. What are we here for? We think of the creation story in Genesis 2. And we're made from clay, and then we're put in the garden to cultivate it and to take care of it. That's who we are. That's what we're here for. Again, I'd invite you to pause, and if you're by yourself, to journal. If you're with others, to have a conversation. What do you think about this idea of the Franciscan, Celtic, and indigenous idea of our unity with matter and spirit? Here in Canada, we have an awful history of our residential schools. You know, when I think about it, we took these indigenous young people to assimilate them. We put them in schools, cut the hair, wouldn't allow them to speak their language. The amazing thing is that this was government policy, and the churches were fully on board and enforcing this to our shame. You know, sometimes I think, like we look at that and we say, what were they thinking? How could they have done that? But what is it 50, 100 years from now, they're going to look back at us and they're going to, in the same way, say, what were they thinking? How could they have done that? I believe it's the issue of the environment. I think that our Pope took the name Francis for a reason. You see, I have this wood carving of Francis here. Francis is the patron saint of the environment. And what did this encyclical he wrote is Laudato Si, on care for our common home. This is a beautiful document, you know, and he deals with the spirituality, the conversion that we need to have. Like one of the ideas that dominates our capitalistic culture is might makes right. And this kind of mindset still leads to all kinds of abuse and exploitation. He talks about the mindset of utilitarianism, where we just see things as things and what use we can have from them. And this is really contrasted by his writing. Paragraph 233, he says this: the universe unfolds in God who fills it completely. There is a mystical meaning to be found in a leaf, in a mountain trail, in a dewdrop, in a poor person's face. And then he has a footnote. He references a Sufi mystic, Ali al-Khawwas. There is a subtle mystery in each of the movements and sounds of this world. The initiate, that's one who is learning, will capture what is being said when the wind blows, the trees sway, water flows, flies buzz, doors creak, birds sing, or in the sound of strings or flutes, the sighs of the sick, the groans of the afflicted. It's so beautiful. Wisdom 1:7, for the Spirit of the Lord fills the world. You know, that's Judaism, the Sufi mystic. Think of Hinduism. Their scriptures speak about this invisible and subtle essence that is in all. Or the indigenous spirituality, where they pray, "O Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the wind, whose breath gives life to all the world. He just fills the entire world. And I just want to invite you to pause and think about this. How do you feel about the Pope quoting a Sufi mystic? How do you feel about other religions and learning from other religions? Has that been your practice? Do you know people of other religions? And in particular, here in Canada, we've had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that has encouraged us to get to know people, to get to know Indigenous people and learn from them. Have you been doing that? And would you like to? Back to this model here of who we are and what we're here for. You know, again, it surprised me as I was making it. In the middle, we see the shape of a cross. Now the cross, of course, it goes back to that Jesus gave his life. He gave his all. Goes back to the scripture that I said. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he gave his all. I once was out for a walk and I saw written on the sidewalk, it said, live to win. And I thought to myself, that's just the problem. That's the way that most people think. Live to win. Of course, I mean, we play sports to have fun and that kind of stuff, and sometimes it's about that. But I think that live to give has a much better rhyme to it, and it's going to make for a better world. Einstein, he once wrote that with very little reflection, we can see that life is meant to be lived for others. So that's one of the meanings of the cross. You know, Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. It means to imitate his life of self-giving love. You know, another meaning of the cross is that life will have its difficulties. There's crosses in life. Young people have their crosses. The elderly have their crosses. We're going through a very, very challenging time right now with this COVID-19, you know. I'd like to share something from Julian of Norwich, 14th century mystic in England. And the bubonic plague was going on at the time, and she was, physical distancing. They used to keep her apart in this anchorage attached to a church. Anyway, she wrote, in the midst of this crisis, the bubonic plague, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. There is a force of love moving through the universe that holds us fast and will never let us go. Again, the cross, the great hope. You know, it's when we don't have reason to hope, I think it can be a mystical, spiritual strength that we can have. Who we are? Love. What are we here for? Love. There is a great scripture verse who talks about who we are and what we're here for. It's from Ephesians 2:10. And it says this, for we are God's work of art, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. You know, here we've been talking about this work of art, and I've been saying that its meaning emerged as I was making it and playing with it and so on. And the same way, a person's life, their meaning will emerge as you find the good work that has been prepared for you in advance. You know, what's religion about? Religion, the word is religament or realign. It's about bringing together. So it's about bringing together body, mind, spirit, emotion, bringing together with nature and society, bringing together with God, connecting. You know, today Pope Francis has invited Christians of all denominations to pray together at one time at 7 o'clock this morning, to pray in the words that Jesus taught us. It's a great gesture of ecumenism that he invited Christians of all denominations and to pray the one prayer that we all know. Maybe we should end by praying together the words that Jesus taught us. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And may God bless us all today in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.